Studios on Brundage Street in Troy, Alabama, and of course we're coming to you before an audience of 12 counties in our general viewing area. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the marvels of high technology, we're coming to you on Facebook around the country and around the world, live from our studios again on South Brundage Street.
You know who's watching is probably watching is Missy Fleming Lovin. I said she's from Tennessee or Kentucky. I was wrong. She's living in St. Louis now.
Yeah. Well, it's of course a great day to be alive and well in America, the greatest land of all. If you don't like America, please try to find some way to get out of here, because we don't want you. If you don't like America, we don't want you to live here. So, we've offered so much to our people, and of course it's our freedom, and it has lasted a long, long time. And of course it's because of the great people in America, black and white. All of you are so important to us all, and appreciate you watching our show this morning. Of course, we've got, this is not an easy time. Bill Rice Jr. is we're running into actual 19th day, or is it the 20th day of July? You know, 20th. 20th, isn't it?
Yeah, according to the bottom of our screen.
The 20th day.
That could be wrong.
It is right, the 20th day, and then there's your hotline number, very important hotline number. Rice, repeat that hotline number.
670-5409.
5409 is your hotline to Troy Regional Medical Center. Our right here in Troy, Alabama. You can call here if you have any doubts at all about how you feel this morning. I mean, of course, the thing that is so important is, have you been running a fever? The next thing that's so very important is, are you having shortness of breath? Those are two main things, but then there's several other things that you need to look for. If you feel sick, don't go out and be around a bunch of folks. Go ahead and call your physician, or call this the 670-5409 number, and get the right direction on what to do if you've got the COVID-19 symptoms. And a lot of people have. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. We thought at one time we were going to turn the corner, but we have not yet turned the corner.
Well, you thought that sometimes we were talking about the warm weather would help. That doesn't seem to have made a difference, because you can't have any warmer weather than we're having right now, can you?
No question about it. And I think of all the troubles that a lot of people are having out there. Some people are out of work. What if you didn't have any electricity?
Oh man!
And didn't have anywhere to cool off. And of course, what if you did have electricity and still didn't have a way to?
There are people that are going through that. We don't know about them, Mike. But don't you know that there are people out there that are have no air conditioning?
You're exactly right. We ought to pray to the Lord every day for taking care of us. And of course, we were talking before the show about it's beautiful, beautiful weather out there, but it's hot, hot, hot. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Of course, I was at the beach, and
mid-90s every day.
Was saying, "Is it hot at the beach?" I said, well, for some reason, all those people that are out on the beach, they're not out there just to get sun. They're out there to sort of cool off in the Gulf. At least that's what a lot of folks I saw. And right now, the Gulf is perfect to enjoy. And you've got a few more days before you have to start school. This would be a good time to go on a trip.
Well, it's like I said last week that we might have an expanded summer break for school kids. so that you'll have even more time to go on a vacation.
What is the last thing that you've heard about?
Locally, my wife is still scheduled to start school August the 20th or 15th.
See, that's still a good ways off, isn't it?
Well, teachers always go back a week earlier than the kids.
Yeah. Good morning, you're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hi, morning.
Mike Amos calling in from where this morning?
Jam-packed Grayton Beach.
There's like, a lot of folks down there?
There's like about 20,000 people together yesterday, it seems like.
And all riding down that little street heading toward the Red Bar. Have you been to the Red Bar?
Yeah, I went to the Red Bar the first day they opened last week, but they blocked off all the streets down there, so everybody's having to take shuttles from above the 30A parking lot up there. So basically, you just see golf carts about every minute zoom by your house, taking people to the Red Bar and Tringo, and actually down to the beach as well.
Yeah, I bet there's some people that could make a little money if they had a golf cart and they say, "Would you like a ride to the Red Bar? It's only $2."
Yeah.
Hey, you could do a lot of that, don't you think?
You can make a lot of money right now. There's no doubt about it. I could probably make a lot of money parking right now. People in my yard.
I know, and I was wondering how you keep them off your yard.
I could probably make an extra couple $100 a day during the weekends. So.
Well, if you do it, you got to keep it down home.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I tried to call in on Zoom or go in on Zoom, but I guess there's some technical difficulties, so I'm on the phone today.
If I ever did something like that, crazy like that, provide transportation on a golf cart, I'd have me a slip saying I'm not responsible for any injury that you have.
Sign a waiver.
No question about it.
Yeah, it was sad out here yesterday. They had a bunch of fire trucks and ambulances and, search and rescue people down on Grayton. Apparently, a group went up scuba diving around 11 yesterday, about 3 miles off. There's a lot of artificial reefs out here, and there's a missing diver from Madison.
I hate that.
So,
Madison, Alabama.
Yeah, Madison, Alabama. It was actually a female diver, so.
Oh, boy.
Very, very sad to see that going on yesterday. Of course, when you go with a dive group, there's usually a lot of people in scuba gear and stuff like that, but still don't think they've located that person yet.
Would she have enough air to hold on for a while?
I would guess not. If they were out there searching.
Yeah,
so.
Man, that is sad. That was at Great Beach, Florida. Of course, home of the Red Bar. They're one of the great restaurants, and my guy from Belgium, is he excited about getting back to business?
Oh yeah, he's there to greet you as soon as you walk in the door, and he's a busy guy.
He's gotten to be sort of a celebrity. Of course, he hails from Belgium. He's just an outstanding guy. I mean, great guy. But he has actually become a celebrity, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Petit is who you're talking about. He's a big 6'5", 6'6" guy. He's hard to miss, huge personality.
Looks like a movie star, doesn't he?
Of course, he's got a passion for what he does. He does all the, decorating and makes the Red Bar the unique place it is. But it's one of those things right now. There's so many people down here, and I told my wife, I said, if we're going to go, right at 11 o'clock at lunch and try to get an outside table. I was like, because it's just too much right now.
Yeah, I was wondering how they served them. Do they spread them out quite a bit? Or
well, yeah, I mean, they're under the same guidelines as everybody else. They've got to do 50% capacity. Now, outside seating, you can have as many people as you want as long as you're 6 feet apart. Yeah. So that's the big thing you're seeing down here. You're seeing huge tents put up outside, and, they're trying to basically not miss a beat when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did look at cases yesterday. I mean, if you can look at any kind of positive, they went from 72,000 around 63,000 yesterday, and deaths were down to 375. So
is that nationwide?
That's nationwide.
375. That's not bad, is it?
It's been 72,000. So you got to take a positive, I guess, only being 63,000.
Now, what are your rules down there, Mike, in Grayton?
We have no rules. I mean, Governor DeSantis is basically, there's no statewide mask order like y'all have in Alabama. Now, I did go to Publix yesterday to get a few things for the girls, and Publix is required mandatory masks now. So I was walking around yesterday, and I was just like, man, this doesn't seem right. I was like, everybody has masks on today. I was like, well, this is good. Everybody's finally wearing a mask in Publix, and then I walked out and I realized, I forgot this thing
well, you know what? I was the same way. I was going to go in the post office, and then I turned around and walked back. Didn't even go in there because of that.
Well, I had to go get some gas on the way to work this morning at the Cottages gas station on 3 Notch in Madison, and I forgot I was in a rush, and then I had to prepay for my gas, and I forgot to put my mask on, and I was promptly told, no mask, no service, but I had one.
No mask, that's right. You sure
I
did.
will say the water is absolutely gorgeous down here, though. If anybody does want to come down, you couldn't ask for prettier water. It's as clear as it can get right now.
Do you have your little lake? Has the lake gone away, or what's the deal?
No, the lake's still there. It's still flowing in and out a little bit. It's definitely not as big and wide as it was before, but they still have that. Our girls actually had to go to a little birthday party when their preschool friends was having on the beach, so my wife took them over there. So
Has your children started to school?
They start back August 10th.
Oh, August 10th, so it's still a pretty good ways until.
Yeah, our daycare basically shuts down all of July and then doesn't open back up until the 10th. So we have to, find a way to keep them. But luckily, my wife and I both are working from home right now, so it actually works out fine.
Mike, we lost, I would say, one of the most famous, best-known people in Troy, in Ralph Black, and then we lost one of the best-known people in all of America, in Congressman John Lewis, who was from Pike County. On Facebook, I've seen some great tributes to both gentlemen. I'm sure you have too.
No question, Ralph Black was a legend, if there ever was one, and I've known Ralph Black from the very beginning. When he first got here, he was sold insurance, and I remember he had a son playing Little League ball, and that son would later on play for Chase Riddle and Troy University. But I remember Ralph very well at an early time where he was involved right off the bat.
So he wasn't in the radio business when he came to Troy?
No, insurance.
I didn't know that.
Insurance, and of course, let me tell you where he got his start. Probably was he was with the Robert E. Lee High School band under the direction of John M. Long, and you become quite a star when you do that. And then he went on instead of to Troy, he went on to Auburn and played in the Auburn band, and also was a member of the famous
Auburn Knights.
Auburn Knights and
orchestra,
and stayed with that group until he died. Really, he would go over once a year or twice a year where they'd have a reunion.
I've been to one of those reunions before.
That's right.
They're big, yeah.
And of course, he was very well known in those circuits. And then, of course, when he came to Troy, he was able to hook back on with his good friend Johnny Long as far as being involved in what we call the community band, representing Troy and the surrounding area, which is probably one of the more outstanding community orchestras in the country, or in the state of Alabama at least. Very, very popular group. And of course, we lost Johnny Long a few months ago, and we also lost Ralph Black. And of course, Ralph Black was the main guy in Troy as far as announcing sporting events for so many years, and doing a wonderful job. And he was a pro. Even up until the latter days of his life, he was a pro. I'm ashamed to say that most of the time, when I would be doing ball games on Troy Cable, and I did a lot of them over the years, I would have to go down to the box and say, Ralph, have you got any starting lineups? He had already done his homework, and I hadn't done mine as well. Because
well, let me interrupt you. As a play-by-play announcer, there's not anybody around that's as good as Ralph Black.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I mean, I used to be a sports editor and sports reporter in Troy for a long time. I can't count the number of games that I did game stories from. We didn't have the budget to send me to all these away Troy University games or some high school games.
Shame on you. Let me tell you that they ought to have a beat writer for the Messenger for every Troy game, don't you?
College basketball games, for example. I wouldn't go to a Jack State game or a Troy Georgia Tech game, but I would listen on the radio and I would take notes. And it was just like you were there, man, listening to Ralph Black.
And of course, he did 258. Is that right, Mike? He did do that play-by-play for that game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Barry McKnight took his place in 2002, from what I read. That's the last call that Ralph made for Troy Athletics. So he had been out of it for 18 years. He was 79 when he passed away.
Exactly.
But I'm like Bill. I tell you what, I'm not national respect, but respect throughout the state of Alabama. I mean, he had a huge article written on him on AL.com and, of course, TroyTrojans.com are replaying Ted Clem's kick and the big Mississippi State win and Starkville, and, they didn't even talk about 258 and all the other big games, 1987 National Championship, 86, 87 in baseball. I mean, I'm sure he called all those games. Dad, I was thinking, when you were the color guy, you weren't the color guy under Black, though. You were the color guy under somebody else.
Bill Buchanan. I did the color for 1 year in 1983.
Did Black get replaced for 1 year? How did that work?
No, well, let's just say this. It was a different radio station. See, they had a big radio station with a tower out at the Pike LeBlanc School of that general area. It was an FM station. It went all over the country. I was their color man, and Bill Buchanan was the play-by-play. And of course, Bill was a professional guy, and he wasn't quite as professional as Ralph Black. I don't know if anybody did. I've done a lot of play-by-play and have enjoyed it, but I haven't always been as prepared as you would want to be. Nobody was better prepared to do a ball game, whether it was a little league game or a beauty pageant.
Yeah, he would be he did World Series and
that's right. And you're exactly right. And he would be so prepared. You look at it, he'd come in there and he'd have a sheet 2 or 3 feet wide and laid out the lineups, who's going to play, who is your kicking team. I mean, he had everything done.
I'll give you an example of why I like Ralph compared to Eli Gold, who's a likable guy and has quite a personality and charisma. But you listen to a game Eli's calling, and he won't tell you how much yardage the play gained or where the ball is.
Where the ball is, that's the most important.
Every play, Ralph Black would tell you, 5-yard gain, balls on the 42, 2nd and 5. He never missed it.
He painted a picture.
He told you who carried the ball, and you could keep stats. So-and-so had.
What was his background? Was he a journalism degree from Auburn? Is that how he got into radio?
No, I think he got into radio by luck, just by meeting up with people like Jim Rowling and Pappy Toppett and Asa Dudley and Joe Gilchrist. He went to work with the radio station part-time. And, he started doing games. Of course, Pappy Toppett, the great Pappy Toppett, had the Pappy Toppett morning show and he did play-by-play.
But I don't think Ralph was doing it. When I moved to Troy in 7th grade, I listened to him on that FM station you were talking about. At night, he was just a DJ.
That's right.
DJs were a big deal. Now they're not as big a deal.
He was good at that, too.
He introduced...
Well, he also did a show with Rick Stetson on Troy Cable for several years. How did that work? I can't remember. You and Bud were doing the show, and then they were on before y'all, or how did that work?
I don't think it was for several years. It was for maybe a couple of years. He did a show with Rick, and of course, two very good personalities. two guys that had golden voices, you know.
Well, Rick
you look
was,
at Mike
Rick
Amos, he doesn't have a golden voice.
The PA, Rick Stetson was the PA voice of Troy University and Charles Henderson forever.
That's right.
Great. You don't have a better one than Rick Stetson. But then Ralph Black took over the PA.
Yeah, he was a PA guy for a long
Charles
time.
Henderson games.
And of course, he did a lot of radio.
I didn't get to listen to a lot of Ralph's great calls because I was always at the games.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get to hear Ted Clem call until I think a couple days ago.
Yeah, I wish we had that on.
Because you know, I went to all those big games he called.
Yeah, I would love to know if we could run that. That would be something. And of course, that was the kick heard around the world when Ted Clem kicked the field goal with no time left on the clock. The buzzer went off as the ball was kicked, and they went through the goal for 50-yard field goal with no time left, and Troy won the national championship over the now famous team from North Dakota State.
We took care of North Dakota State.
We beat North Dakota State in the.
Yeah, when you look at that game at the time, you know they were a great championship program, but now you look and see how big of a win that was. I mean, that's unbelievable that you beat a North Dakota.
Probably the last time they've gotten beat in a long time.
Yeah, they haven't beat many times in a championship game.
That's one of the great programs of all time, no question about it.
I mean, they're the Alabama of 1AA. There's no doubt about it.
A lot of folks had their certain things that they did that nobody else was. What was Ralph's great call? What would he say?
His saying?
Yeah, his theme. What would he be?
They said he said holy mackerel.
Holy mackerel. He said holy mackerel a bunch of times. You're right. And of course, you know, he had class, you know, and he was a professional. He was not laid back like I. One of the reasons that I've been on the network for as long as I have, and of course I've been on it with a show here since 1998 with a show, and I always said to myself, I said, well, Ralph is downtown doing radio, and he's a real pro, and I'm over here doing laid-back television at its very best, and that's why I mentioned laid-back television. I'm not a pro. I'm just a guy sitting up here talking and trying to inform people on what's
Ralph
going on and make something entertaining.
But, you know, and he was, why we're all talking about him is, we all know Ralph and knew him, and he was just a fine man, too. He was always interested in what you had to say, and nice guy, cared about people, cared about Troy, and then he comes on, and he was the perfect successor to Jim Rowland at WTBF for the morning show.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Jim Moore.
It said Black called more than 1,000 Troy sporting events from 1976 to 2002.
Yeah.
He helped build the Troy State Network into one of the largest of its kind in Alabama, once compromising 18 stations. Let's see, he called 122 straight Troy football games, including Troy's first season as a Division I member.
And Mike, you know, at one time he had Troy was wide open in Coleman, Alabama, all the way up there. You could hear Troy.
He called the 87 national championship game, 86-87 baseball, then the 1993 basketball game that, you know, Troy lost in the national championship game. Troy Chancellor Dr. Jack Hawkins Jr. commented on the death of Ralph Black. He said Ralph Black provided the soundtrack to many of the most memorable moments in the history of Troy University athletics. He loved Troy University and the Troy community, enjoyed his friendship, and appreciated his unwavering support of the Trojans through the years. Troy athletics has lost one of its biggest fans.
Well, you know, and of course you said his last games were in 2002, but then, hey, listen, then he started he started getting real interested in local sports and local activities. And, you know, he was on that morning show for years. And that right there, if you look at it, it's one of the most listened to radio programs you'll find anywhere. And he worked for that program a long time and did it in a professional way.
Well,
you know?
WTBF is like Troy Cable. They're hyper-focused on local.
Yeah. And
we take it for granted in Troy, but there's no very, very few towns in Alabama or America that have a cable company that does what Troy Cable does, or a radio station that does what WTBF does.
And I tell you what, he did it right, and if it wasn't right, you would hear from him. And of course, I've been around him, doing a broadcast or right before broadcast when things weren't exactly right. He made sure that everybody walked around very, very, very politely, because if it wasn't done right, he didn't want to do it, and he wanted to make sure it was done right. And he might have scolded a few people, but he wanted it done right. He wanted it done professionally, and like I said earlier. Oh man, that was wonderful.
Where'd you find that, Michael?
That's on TroyTreasures.com. That's the first of it is the Clem kick, and then that's Troy upset Mississippi State and Starkville.
All right, listen one more time, the Clem kick, and let me talk about it for a second. It was down to the last play of the game, and Hollingsworth, the young man from Eufaula, was going to hold it, and the kick would be by George Young. Holy mackerel.
That was Ted Clem, and that was him saying holy mackerel.
One more time, and I'll leave you alone.
Turn it up.
Here, one more time.
This is off my computer. Wait a second, I'll pull it up again.
This is that championship kick.
And then the other one was... It's basically the ball's going in the uprights. It doesn't, have the whole setup or anything like that.
That game was also on television on WTVY in Dothan, only in
I want to say Al Roberts did the game. I want to say.
And it was just the kick heard around the world. A young, pure freshman out of Georgiana, Alabama, Ted Clem, kicked it through. They said, and I was at the game, and I promise you, that kick went way above the upright. And would have probably been good from 60 yards. But
McAllen, Texas, where they had that game, is literally one of the most dangerous places on the planet.
I know it to live.
It's right there on the border. I mean, what goes on there is just, almost scary now.
But at that time, though, we went to Mexico, and we enjoyed all the good restaurants.
We enjoyed it, and, life was just a lot different back then. But, man, it's you're hearing all kinds of stuff going on. There was 2 police officers killed in McAllen, I think about 5 days ago.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. But Ralph Black's legacy will live on and on and on, and we'll be talking about him every day on this show.
Where else we hear him is he did the voices for how many thousands of radio commercials, So when you had a commercial done by Ralph Black, it sounded professional and really
good. And hopefully WTBF will continue to run those like they do with Jim Rowland. Jim Rowland was a legend too.
Yeah, we hear Jim every day today. I'm
another professional. But I'm going to tell you somebody.
Yeah, you hear Doc Kirby. He's on there a lot.
Oh, yeah, Doc's another great one, and he's a superstar. But let me tell you where it might have all started. Of course, Douglas Edwards was nationally known
the first national TV news anchor in America. He was the anchor before Walter Cronkite was Douglas Edwards.
That's right. And he learned learned how to do it right here on WTBF radio in Troy, Alabama. But the guy that might have brought it all together was a guy named Bob Pappy Talbot, who not only had the morning show, the Pappy Talbot morning show every morning every weekday morning, and then of course he was their salesman, Pappy Talbot was, and so he sort of helped really.
Don't you think that just probably about 80% of people in Pike County would have listened to Pappy Talbot?
Yeah, exactly, no question about it. And then from there, Jim Rowland took over for Pappy, and then after that, it was Ralph Black and Jim Rowland, and then it became Ralph Black and our good buddy, Ralph's running mate for all those years. Rick Stetson. Those were great talents that came down the line on on WTVF radio, and but again, it all probably started with what a great professional Bob Talbot was. He was a very good play-by-play announcer, and I can remember he did a lot of the games whenever your dad played high school.
Really? Yeah.
And I can remember one of his great games was. The give to Hogan to the 40, Hogan to the midfield, Hogan, he's going to break it all the way, Hogan's going to score, Hogan. That's how he did that touchdown, 70 yards on the first play of scrimmage against Robert E. Lee High School before 25,000 fans in Montgomery. Was one of the highlights of, and of course your daddy was a junior on that team. Wallace Hogan was a young man from the children's home who grew up sort of like Bobby Marlowe. You know, he was the next Bobby Marlowe, and of course it was something for Troy to play the final score 14-12. 14-12 was the final score, and of course Lee won the game. But what a play that was! But I'm a little boy sitting at home at night listening to it on our family radio.
On the edge of your seat.
Everybody had a family radio, and I listened on family radio, and I'm jumping up and down. Oh man! And all he said was Hogan, and Hogan outran everybody. And that's boy from Troy, and Troy was leading Robert E. Lee 7-0 at the time.
You know, Ralph's son Ed is one of my best buddies. We're in the class of 1983, Charles Henderson High School, and Ed's one of the finest people that's ever came out of Troy and one of the most talented. You know, let me tell you about Ed Black. I was co-editor of the high school newspaper my senior year. Ed Black was the other editor, so he was good in journalism, right? Yeah. He was big into music and the band because his dad's
band.
Yeah, he was a fan. He played the drums for the Blue Machine his freshman and sophomore year and was obviously great. He's one of the best baseball players ever to come out of Troy. Hadn't played football since I moved to Troy. I was the quarterback of the junior high team, the 8th grade team. Didn't play football his freshman or sophomore year. We won the state championship my sophomore year. Well, Coach Jeffcoat must have talked Ed into coming out for the football team his junior year. Hadn't played football as far as I know his whole life.
Yeah.
Who was the starting quarterback immediately? Ed Black was the starter. And it was a great quarterback for 2 years.
Let me ask you a question.
Man, he must have been a really good athlete to just step in and play quarterback. I mean, he really had never played all growing up with you guys?
Nope.
He's just a good athlete.
And he wasn't fast. He probably couldn't jump high, but his...
I guarantee you if he played for Jeffcoat, he was real smart.
Well, let me tell you something. I don't know if
he could throw a football. He became a good runner. He wasn't real fast, but he was... I saw him after... I hurt my knee my junior year and didn't play. But I remember seeing Ed after...
Let's be honest. When you blew your knee out, that really cost Charles Henderson the state championship.
Yeah, that's right. Probably did. I'll tell you why out there. It's not because of me. It's they moved. The guy that replaced me was a fantastic running. I was a safety, and he was a great running back, and they moved this great running back to strong safety. And Coach Jeffcoat didn't play people both ways, and I thought, man, Michael Stark needs to be staying at running back. But I saw Ed after a game. He took off his body with just bruises and black and blue all over.
You had to remember this game. It was against Opp, and it was the last few seconds of the game, and all Charles Henderson High School had to do was just sort of hit a knee, and the clock was going to run out. Well, They had the ball on about their own 8 or 9 yard line, and all they had to do. This was at op, and
first game of the year, my senior year.
Well, all right. So here it is. They come out, and he fakes to the fullback, and he goes down the line, runs a triple option, fumbles, picked up by op, and they score the winning touchdown. And do you remember that?
Yeah, Ed was the quarterback, but it wasn't Ed pitched the ball. The fullback read wasn't there. The quarterback he pitched it, hit the running back right in the hands, but the running back dropped the ball.
But why didn't they just hit
a knee at the game? There must have been more time left for you making it out the bag.
Let me tell you.
Or at least not pitched.
You know what the answer was? Blake, Jeff Coke taught them to execute the entire play. If you ever watched them in pre-game or anything, they faked to the fullback. The quarterback went down the line, either pitched it or kept it. Well, instead of just leaving it with the fullback,
somebody took the quarterback, so he pitched it.
That's right, and he pitched it. That's what he's taught to do, and that was the answer to it. Why did they pitch ball? That was the way they ran their offense. They read the offense. If the fullback wasn't there, they pulled it out, and the quarterback ran it. If he was going to be stopped, he pitched back to the running back.
I'm going to tell you, that year I was on the sidelines watching. Do
you remember that?
Yeah, I was on the sidelines with my bum knee watching it, and lost that game, which we had should have won. Then later in the year, I think we're playing Daleville or somebody, and we're going in to put them away, up by about 5, but we're going to score a touchdown and go up by 12. Exact same thing happens. We fumble. Yeah. They pick it up and go 90 yards. So that's 2 games. We lost 5. Yeah. We went 5-5 that year, but that's 2 games that we just handed to the other team.
The year after the state championship, y'all went 5-5? Wow, that is crazy.
No, that was 2 years later.
2 years later, okay.
The next year we went 6.
I know my junior year we were playing Satsuma on the goal line. It was, 3rd and 1, 4 for 1. You're calling the game, Dad.
Yeah.
And we ran a halfback pass on the 1 yard line. And we had C.K. Penton and a fullback in what was it? Was it DeMonte Collins?
Yeah. Sorry.
We had Collins at fullback. I can't believe I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, he weighed about 260, 270.
Yeah, that's right. Huge.
And we ran a halfback pass on the 1 yard line.
Did he score?
No.
But Troy University used to run that all the time. Off the wishbone.
Yeah, but that was a shocking call considering who we had in the backfield.
Oh yeah.
But that 5-5 team, my senior year, lost those 2 games we should have won. There was only one team that beat us by more than a touchdown. That was Sanhope Elmore. Yeah. So that team, records can be deceiving.
They had that great running back at Stanhope too, if I remember right.
We need to mention John Lewis. Of course, John Lewis.
Oh yeah.
Passed away. Huge. I guess legendary, figure in the civil rights movement. And of course, he marched with, and was, very close with Dr. King. And it says John Lewis was born on February 21st, 1940 in Troy, Alabama, the 3rd of 10 children of Willie Mae Carter and Eddie Lewis. His parents were sharecroppers in rural Pike County, Alabama. So apparently he was born and raised up around Blues Old Fan area, according to Jason Reeves. Jason Reeves put a great post out on Facebook, Mayor Reeves, if anybody wants to read it, about John Lewis. The city of Troy had a John Lewis Day and honored him, I guess, a couple years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I didn't realize the great baseball player that my cousin grew up playing baseball with was his nephew, Darius Lewis, that went on to play at Alabama.
Yeah, Darius was a great guy.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this.
Amazing to hear stories about John Lewis. And every once in a while when I was in Troy and I would go to Ingram's Curb Market, I would see him in there shopping. Well, I guess somebody, maybe his mom or some family member.
Sure. But everybody went there.
I was talking to your dad.
It's amazing to read about the history, all he accomplished.
I was talking to your dad before we got on the air that who's the most famous person ever to come from Pike County? Everybody's always said Douglas Edwards. Heck, he was the anchor of CBS TV News for 5 or 6 years. So tens of millions of people saw him every night, right? Before.
That's right.
We don't remember it now, but anybody over age 75 remembers Douglas Edwards. Everybody in America knew Douglas Edwards. But now I might say that John Lewis might be.
No question about it.
if not the most famous person to ever come from Pike County, right up there with Douglas, because 70% of people in America would know who John Lewis was.
And on his birth certificate, it would say Troy, Alabama, because he was born at either Edge Hospital or what was my other hospital?
Beard,
either Edge or Beard Hospital, either one of those. And,
well, I mean, I'm looking at Wikipedia, and it definitely says he's from Troy, Alabama. Now,
that's right.
He was from, out in the country, out where the Reeves family was, out near Blues Old Stand area, right on the Pike County, Bullitt County line.
Well, Meadows, Mike, they always said he was from Montgomery because he was born in a hospital in Montgomery. His birth certificate read.
Well, I mean, you could say, I'm a legendary figure as well. I've been doing this thing for 8 years. I was born in Montgomery Baptist Hospital as well.
That's right, you sure
were. Am I from Montgomery?
That's right. Well, that's where your birth certificate read.
Is that what my Wikipedia page will say one day?
Yeah. Yeah.
I read most of John Lewis's autobiography, and he's from out in rural
Banks general area. Yeah, that's what I always thought.
And I think he went to school and out there, more closer to Brundage.
Yeah. Where did it say he went to college? Did he go to Atlanta, or where did he go to college? Do you know?
I could find out all that.
I'll tell you what, he was a great leader and a man that was very close to Reverend King, and of course, one of the people
top
that was there
in the civil rights movement.
He was there to support him in every way if it had to be
Lewis
physical.
Graduated from the American Baptist Theological Seminary in Nashville, Tennessee, and received a bachelor's degree in religion and philosophy from Fisk University.
Yeah. Well, he carried himself very well, a very sharp guy. You ever notice him? He was about as well dressed as any of the congressmen, and a guy that was very proud of his heritage and of course was very proud of who he was. I'm a big stickler on what, Mike? On what?
You're a big stickler on what?
I'm a big stickler on my life on being proud of who you are and where you're from.
Yeah.
And shake that man's hand like it's gold, and look at him straight in the eyes.
Of course, in 1964, he almost lost his life, or 65, he almost lost his life on Bloody Sunday at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So they're actually talking about renaming the Edmund Pettus Bridge to the John Lewis Bridge.
I bet they do it. I bet
that would be a good name. I'm sure it really would.
He served in Congress for 33 years. He was later in life, lived in Atlanta and was very involved in the city of Atlanta as well.
And it was always a peaceful. Now I'm not saying that he was not involved in some situations where he pretty much had to support the people he was around, and of course he was injured, like you said, many times, but always kept coming back, and he never wavered at all. He'll go down as one of the great people of his time.
Yeah, I mean, he lived a good life. He was 80 years old when he just passed away, and we definitely, thoughts and prayers go out to their family, and of course they have family probably, I imagine, still in the Pike County area, so definitely our prayers go out to them. And
well, he's Ralph Black's age.
Definitely will be something that will be talked about for several days to come.
And my mom and dad's age, he's talked about that, this distaste of discrimination, it comes from experiences in Troy. Although he didn't live in Troy, he would come to Troy, and he would be asked to sit. He could go to the movie, but he had to sit in the balcony at the movie theater.
I remember the balcony.
I think he said one time he couldn't check out books at the library.
Well, that's a shame. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I guess it was true if he said.
Yeah, that actually is talked about on Wikipedia. His early life. I didn't mention that, but he says as a young child, Lewis had little interaction with white people. By the time he was 6, Lewis had seen only 2 white people his whole life, is what he claimed, which is hard to believe. And he grew older. As he grew older, he began taking trips into the town with his family where he experienced racism and segregation, such as the public library in Troy. So
Isn't that amazing?
That actually was mentioned on his Wikipedia page.
I've heard
You know,
that.
we look back what all our forefathers did. It's shameful, but that's just the way life was back then. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's been slaves throughout history of the world. I mean, there's been white slaves, there's been black slaves. You know, I mean, it's just part of the way the world was and the way it worked. You know, it's just unfortunate that that's just the world. You know, the way it worked and the way our life has happened. But hopefully in 2020 we can finally get things right. I hope.
Yeah. You know what is really amazing about all of this is they finally passed the law that an African American could vote, and that was 1963. That wasn't that long ago. That's what's so sad about all this.
Well, it's the yeah.
I want to say 1963 was when they passed that.
African Americans could vote after the Civil War, after they freed the slaves, and they did. They were elected black holders, but then something came along called the Jim Crow laws. So technically they could, but it was like 1% of. They had poll taxes and literacy tests, and the effect of all of that was the same. That they couldn't vote, and then so it was different in the South, completely different, a different world in the South compared to the North.
Yeah.
And then you talk about Dad and Mom lived next to Colin Powell at Fort Benning when they were in the Army in 1962. Dad had one long conversation with Colin Powell. He said, and the theme of the article of the conversation was how tough it was for Colin Powell to drive from up north in New York and get to the South.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't find a hotel to stay in there. I mean, things we take for granted. It was once you crossed Maryland or something, you went into a different world.
You really did. And like you take the great Willie Mays and some of these great baseball players over the years. Like you said, when they got down to the South, it was a different ball game. About the freedom.
Or somebody like Nat King Cole would do a concert the whites would flock to and love, but then after that concert, Nat King Cole couldn't find anywhere a nice hotel to stay in.
And I don't think out of all the great
Willie
singers,
Mays was from Birmingham, McCovey was from Mobile, I mean, Hank Aaron was from Mobile, Billy Williams was from Birmingham. I mean, some of the greatest baseball players in the history of the game are from the state of Alabama.
They called them cronies back then, and Nat King Cole's voice is probably the greatest that's ever been as far as smooth, beautiful voice. Ramblin' Rose, old Pappy Talbot used to play that almost every morning, and that was one of Nat King Cole's great songs. But all these wonderful. Where
was Nat King Cole born?
In Montgomery, I want to say.
Yeah, he moved as a kid, but he lived in Montgomery early on.
But,
all right, you want to take a commercial break?
Yeah, let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Want some coffee?
Yeah, please.
Have you seen an increase in your insurance premiums or significant change in your insurance coverage? Let Sandback Insurance offer you a better plan to suit your business or personal needs. Sandback Insurance offers many lines of insurance. Whether it's home, farm, or auto insurance, work comp, business, or health and life policies, Sandback is here for you. Call or visit our Troy, Enterprise, or Andalusia office today. Sandback Insurance, where we take pride in taking care of your insurance needs.
At the Piggly Wiggly, we proudly support our local farmers and bring you the best they have to offer, all at cost plus 10%. When you shop local, you reinvest in your community. Remember, buy local, shop local. Piggly Wiggly, local since forever.
A personal touch, a high level of trust. Whether it's checking and savings accounts, personal or business loans, or our local friendly service. That's what Troy Bank and Trust customers expect. But now we offer more. free identity theft protection for our new and existing customers, protecting your family's time, money, and good name from identity theft. Because protecting your identity is now a big part of our identity.
Trojan Auto Parts of Troy, home of Napa Know-How. Stop by and see owners Mike and Melissa Kilcrease and their Napa Know-How team with over 100 years of combined experience. We're the only locally owned parts store in Pike County, and we're fully stocked and ready to serve you. We pride ourselves on being your go-to parts store, not only for the simple items, but we specialize in those hard-to-find items as well. Trojan Auto Parts, the right part at the right price at the right time. Napa, a name you've trusted here in Troy since 1945.
Here at Bill Jackson Chevrolet in Troy, we've been doing business the right way for 31 years. But don't take our word for it. We feel our customers express it the best.
Been honest in everything we've discussed with them.
When they say Jackson Satisfaction, they really mean it.
The Jackson Satisfaction.
Back to our show, ladies and gentlemen, and Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where the Crimson Tide of Alabama and the Brigham Young University are going head-to-head in this football game. Brigham Young coming in here from Provo today.
Out of Tuscaloosa, they're mentioning that Alabama may start the season against Brigham Young. Now, where that game will be played is to be determined, but that makes a lot of sense because Brigham Young probably has lost a lot of games due to the Pac-12 shutting down.
That's right.
Playing conference only. And then, of course, the Big Ten, I don't know if they're playing any Big Ten teams, but they're playing conference only as well. So that might be a matchup you'll see with Alabama. Of course, they played BYU several years ago, back when Sean Alexander was there. I know they played them.
BYU's no pushover. They're pretty good because they're a bunch of grown men. Most of these guys are 28 and 30 years old.
Yeah.
I want to mention huge recruiting news for Alabama. They're skyrocketing. I think in some recruiting sites are already at number 2 or 3. They were like in the 50s, but they got these two twins out of Texas, out of Fort Worth, named Brockemeyer, and one of the twins is 6'6", 290, top offensive tackle in the country. He's a 5-star, and then his brother is a 4-star center, 6'3", 275. Amazing story though is they got these kids right out of Texas. Their dad was a Texas All-American, played 10 years in the pros. And then their granddad played at Texas. Their older brother played at Texas.
Guys.
So Tom Herman is getting serious heat, the Texas coach, to let these guys get out of the state. But a huge pickup for Alabama.
That would be like one of the Hanna kids going to Texas.
That's right. It sure would.
Exactly.
It would be.
I mean, so this is huge news for Alabama football. And then Alabama goes into Georgia and gets one of the top offensive linemen out of Georgia yesterday as well. So
these are just commitments. They could change. Hey, you think Coach Lindsey watches our show?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure he does.
All right, I'm talking to Coach Lindsey. They're talking about recruiting. Michael, you might know this. Ree Drummond is the Pioneer lady that has the super popular cooking show.
My wife watches that show.
Is that one of the Drummonds?
No, these are Oklahoma
This
Drummonds.
is a red-headed lady out in Oklahoma.
Okay.
The Pioneer lady, that she's like Martha Stewart, but both of her sons are outstanding quarterbacks, and one of them just committed to North Texas, who Troy used to play all the time. He's 6'3", 205, threw for 3,200 yards last year. He plays linebacker and had 100 tackles. So he's committed to North Texas, but he has not signed.
That's right.
I hope Coach Lindsey will get on this kid, and we can get the Pioneer lady's son to play for Troy. How big would that be? Because she would mention Troy and Troy University on lots of her shows, and she and her husband would come to every game.
Really?
I think so.
What was her name again?
Ree Drummond.
Drummond, yeah.
But
the reason I mentioned the Drummond, of course, the Drummond Coal Mine and Company in Birmingham was one of the wealthiest people in the country at one time.
Well, she is. I think I read that she's worth $500 million.
What, this girl is?
Yeah, she has products that are in Walmart, and she's cookbooks and TV show, and
she's really worth $500 million.
She's worth more than the guru herself.
Maybe I read that wrong, but she's worth a lot of money. She's a brand, as they say now.
Yeah, exactly. Hope you enjoyed our show.
The Memorial Tournament was yesterday. Jack Nicholas tournament tournament, and big news from Jack Nicklaus and his wife. They announced they had the coronavirus and basically had no symptoms back in March. So he's a legendary, figure that had the virus that nobody knew about until, I guess, his tournament this weekend. But John Rahm won the tournament yesterday. The tournament and the course was playing extremely tough. There was really high scores left and right. And he is now number one in the world, the Spaniard, John Rahm.
He doesn't look Spaniard, but what is a Spaniard supposed to look like?
He doesn't really sound that Spaniard.
He plays college golf at Arizona State under Tim Mickelson. Phil Mickelson's brother was the golf coach.
Is that who the coach is there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me show you something that I was thumbing through. Mike, I'm sure you might remember this game. I don't know exactly when it was, but this game was played in Troy, and I was told only 3 times ever that this flag had been used at a ball game, and that one of them was the Troy game. You see that flag covers the entire football field. You don't see a flag that covers the entire football field. This might be better this way. No, it's better this way. But
how many people did it take to unravel that?
Oh, it took a bunch of them, but that was at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Troy, and of course it's been used just 3 times. That came out of Houston. I want to say General Gravan had a lot to do with bringing this using this flag, but this was one of the great halftime shows in Troy history because, let me see if I can get it right again, because of that flag right there.
Yeah, that's a great, fantastic picture. I wish it was in color.
No question about it. And of course, we're still thinking and praying for our good friend Ralph Black's family, and the funeral is sometime on Wednesday. I don't know the exact time. If I had that, I would report that to you, and I'm surely we'll have it. If we don't have it today, we'll have it tomorrow. But what a great man Ralph Black was. He was, your legacy means a lot to a lot of people. What is the world going to think of me once I'm gone? Well, Ralph Black, one of the smoothest voices that you'll ever hear. He was born to be an announcer, and of course he was a first-class announcer here in Troy for over 50 years. And Ralph was just as friendly to the guy at the coffee shop as he was at the ball game. Everybody loved Ralph, and he treated everybody the same. And of course, players and friends were always important to Ralph Black. And of course, the great line, or the great lineage, if you want to say, of I don't know if that's the proper word to use, right? Of the city of Troy and this radio station. It goes all the way back to Harold Jones, my good friend. He worked at the radio station a long time. Then comes Douglas Edwards in the news. Douglas Edwards, the world-renowned TV anchorman. And then some guys like, he's a state senator from Florida, and of course he graduated here and worked for a radio station. He was a weatherman down in Florida for a long time. I can't remember it.
Lots of TV anchormen that were at Troy University. Started off at radio at WTBF.
Yeah, I always remember the radio station being at the college.
Oh yeah, the funeral is.
Visitation's Tuesday from 4 to 6 at Green Hills, and then the funeral is Wednesday 10 o'clock at Green Hills.
Okay, visitation from 4 to 6 on Tuesday at Green Hills, and then the funeral will be on Wednesday from Green Hills at 10 o'clock. Is that right? 10 o'clock. Got it. So let's remember that. Those from 4 to 6, the visitation on Tuesday at Green Hills. This is for Ralph Black.
Yeah, I was talking about
and then the funeral will be Wednesday at 10 o'clock from Green Hills, and you better get there in a hurry. That'll be a packed crowd.
I was telling some Ed Black stories. I just want to tell another one that illustrates how great Ed was. Our senior year in high school, we finished second in the state in baseball, lost by 1 run. Came down to the final at bat with the tying run on third. But in that first game, it was a best-of-3 series. Charles Henderson lost 1-0. Sam Drake, a freshman, pitched that game. First batter of the game hit a home run for the other team, and that was the only run. So it's do or die the second game, right? Who pitches? Ed Black pitches and gets that key win for Troy. I think in that series, Ed played catcher, pitcher, and shortstop. I remember, I think we fell behind in the third game, which we lost by 1, but came back. Ed Black on one, he hits, he's left-handed batter. He's right-handed, but his dad must have taught him to bat left-handed. So he was right-handed, but he hit left-handed. Hits the ball, strokes one, barely goes foul. I wasn't even sure it was foul. It was just like a foot outside the right field pole. And everybody says, oh man, that was going to be a 3-run home run. Very next pitch, Ed hits it about 4 feet to the left, right where he just hit the other one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just think of what he did.
No question about it.
So Ralph also had a son that was, it probably doesn't get the credit he deserves as a great athlete in Troy.
You know, I was doing something here, I reckon, make it my hall of honor of great people, and I probably admit somebody, but this is just off the top of my head, looking at the Hall of Fame at WTBF radio over the years. Of course, you know, we talk about Douglas Edwards, and you know, he went on to fame nationally with CBS, I want to say, and you know, he and the Guru himself were best friends. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know who the Guru himself was?
Brokaw?
Yeah, no, not Brokaw.
Walter Cronkite?
Cronkite. He and Cronkite were best friends.
He was one of Murrow's boys.
That's
too.
Right. That's right.
Edward Murrow's boys.
But
he was big in radio before you know, before he had TV. Yeah. He was a big famous radio announcer too.
Now and then comes Bob Talbot, Pappy Talbot, and you know, he was a great personality, and of course he had the morning show, and that's pretty much all he did. He did a lot of sports broadcasting and so forth. He did a lot of games when I played, and of course his sons Rip Talbot and Pat Talbot.
You talk about these shows,
Talbot.
These influences of these shows, Mike. In Dad's books, he's written 2 history books for Troy. I can remember 2 events that wouldn't have happened absent people talking about them on the radio. One was building a new football stadium or improving Memorial Stadium. The other was merging the Beards Hospital and Edge Hospital, closing them and building Ed Regional Medical Center. Dad says that both of those ideas started out of conversations on the morning show on the radio, and then you know, he started talking about it, and then other people say, "Yeah, let's do that," and they kept talking about it until, you know, after a while they did something about it.
Right, on the shores of beautiful Lake
Tuscaloosa.
No, on the shores. This is WTBF radio on the shores of
Lake
the
Lagoon.
Beautiful Lake Lagoon in Troy, Alabama, and of course everybody that's been around.
That is definitely not a lake. That is
that's why they call
it. That was a joke.
They call it Lake Lagoon, and but let's go over this Hall of Fame. These are the people that I can remember best, and with Bob Pappy Talbot in the morning show, and he had it for years and years. And people from all around, not just Troy and Pike County, but all around, they listened to that morning show, and he closed that morning show every morning by saying what?
It was before my time. I wasn't living here.
And good day, Mrs. McGillicuddy, wherever you are. Mrs. McGillicuddy. I was
in Opelika
with his beautiful wife, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then after that comes Asa Dudley. I can remember this so well. Well, Bob Talbot and Asa Dudley. This is Asa Dudley. Bob Talbot and Asa Dudley from Andalusia High School, where the Troy Trojans will do battle with the Andalusia Bulldogs. Okay, then after Asa Dudley comes the great Joe Gilchrist, and Joe Gilchrist, you know, was one of the owners, late owners of the radio station.
It was Asa Dudley, Joe Gilchrist, and Jimmy Rowland.
That's right.
That's right. They're cousins. They're cousins. You're right. Same Joe Gilchrist family. He was an engineer for years and years and years, and out there by the transmitters on the Banks Highway. That's where the transmitter was. Maybe. He went out there every morning and turned the radio on, And of course, he was a great.
He understood all the technology behind it.
And then Pappy Talbot always had the Joe Gilchrist on his show in the mornings. It was quite a radio show, and then comes a young guy who was with the radio from his high school days all the way through his death, which was just a few years ago. The great Jim Rowland. And you know, I respect and think about Jim Rowland now more than ever, and they do something with Jim Rowland that I hope they'll do at the radio station with Ralph Black. He still does a lot of the commercials. Jim Rowland, who died several years ago, they have him doing the commercials, and you wonder why they do it. All you got to do is listen to it. They're unique, beautiful presentations. Representing a local business.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And Jim Rowland's still broadcasting at WTVF, and hopefully Ralph Black will his voice will remain in certain elements of the broadcast.
Yeah, I bet they will. On a lot of these commercials are what called branding commercials.
Yeah.
They don't mention a sale coming up on Friday. You could run them anytime, and they do.
But you always wonder why somebody's a radio guy. I've years ago as a young kid, I went and interviewed, and they taped me and everything, and evidently wasn't a voice for radio because they didn't ask me to come back. They have since the last 20 or 30 years. They've asked me to do things, but back then they didn't. But you listen to a guy like Asa Dudley, Jim Rowland, Bob Pappy Talbot,
then
Ralph Black.
Doc Kirby is a fixture.
You listen to their voices; they're professional voices. They're radio voices. They're all. Doc Kirby's a great radio voice. But let me finish this in a row. I reckon I can, because it's my show, I can interrupt anytime. I don't mean to.
That's okay.
But I would say Bob Talbot, Asa Dudley, Joe Gilchrist, Jim Rowland, Rick Stetson, Doc Kirby, Ralph Black. Those guys would be all on my Hall of Fame list.
Mine too.
And
so where do they turn now at the radio station? Who does the morning show? I have no clue.
That is one of the things. Now on the show this morning was John Michael. John Michael was on there this morning talking about Ralph Black. He might take it over. You know, he's a good talent. And but that's a great morning show, one of the more traditional morning shows on radio in the state of Alabama.
Well, if you had some event coming up, where did you go to promote it? You went on the radio station.
That's right, at that time.
Well, you went on Today in LA, and you went on Amos too for years.
Well, I mean, that was forever, and then Today in LA came around, and you had two places.
Well, and the thing about it,
that's what people don't realize. I don't think Dad's been doing this for 22 years on Today in LA.
Yeah. And we also, though, of course, you know, I've been actually doing the games and so forth since the mid '80s. But
I told my wife the other day, I said, I can't believe I've been doing this show for 8 years.
Yeah, and you're pretty good at it too. There's no question about it.
I've got more of a face for television, though. we're actually losing viewers today because I'm not on Zoom.
Yeah, you're right. Especially the women, you know, whatever. But those Hall of Famers, Bob Pappy Talbot, Asa Dudley, Joe Gilchrist, Jim Rowland, Rick Stetson, Doc Kirby, and the great Ralph Black were all great announcers. And another one, Mike, and this name might ring a bell, Jimmy Vance.
Jerry Miller did a lot of stuff with Ralph, too, didn't he?
Jerry, though, worked strictly with sports. He was their color guy, and he was great, no question about it.
Well, he still is. I mean, he works for Barry.
Yeah. But Jimmy Vance
the big thing Troy growing up, though, is I hope I can still remember these numbers because I should. Growing up in Troy was 9:70 a.m. was the radio station. Is that correct?
9:70 a.m. And you know.
And then the biggest thing ever is when they finally went to FM. But I can't even remember how many years ago that was.
Wow. It wasn't that long ago, to tell you the truth. And Jim Rowland
had to be over 10 or 15 years, I'd say.
Well, I'll tell you something. Another important guy on that radio station for a long time was a guy named Roy Crow. You know him pretty well. He was the chairman of the board for about 40 years.
Wow.
And helped bring back.
He did a lot in Troy. I tell friends of mine all the time that he did a lot for Troy. He did a lot for me. hopefully we'll get the benefit from it the rest of my life.
Maybe so, maybe so. Of course, a great article in the Messenger this week about and we've talked about Mr. Jim Ramage for all those years. Well, there's a great article on the Ramage family in the weekend Messenger, and it portrayed, all this information came from Jimmy Ramage, of course, the former president and CEO of First National Bank of Brundage. But it was a great article done by Janie Treadwell. Of course, Janie's very knowledgeable, especially with Brundage people. But it was, I love the way this was mentioned. It says, my great-granddaddy, James T. Ramage, opened First National Bank in Brundage on October the 15th, 1904. And ladies and gentlemen, I was president. This is Jim Ramage talking. I was president and CEO when the bank celebrated its 100th anniversary, Saturday, June the 26th, which was my birthday, 2004. And that was an honor for me and a great celebration for our town. We are looking to celebrate another 100 years as they merge with TB&T, Troy Bank and Trust Company. Great article, and of course, this will tell you a little bit about the bank. It was always a Ramage that ran that bank since Mr. Jim did in 1904. But it says here, Ramage, neither he nor his three cousins, who are the primary stockholders in First National Bank of Brundage, were looking to sell the bank, but once the opportunity was presented, it was decided that it would be a good and wise decision for all concerned to merge with TBF, to merge with Troy Bank and Trust Company. Troy Bank and Trust Company and First National Bank of Brundage share more than 250 common years of banking together. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Troy Bank and Trust Company is now a billion-dollar bank.
When was Troy Bank and Trust
after
founded?
This merger. What?
When was Troy Bank and Trust founded?
I don't know, but it's about the same time.
It sounds like it must have been in the 1800s.
Yeah, it was and everything. And another...
we ought to do a show one day of the banks in Troy that no longer exist. You used to have First Alabama. I guess they merged it with Regions. Then you had AmSouth. They... I can't remember who they merged with. They might have merged with Wells Fargo. And then you had Pike County Bank, where Country's Barbecue used to be.
That's right.
I'm just trying to think of all the different banks there was growing up.
Yeah. Then you had South Trust, which became...
South Trust, yeah.
Yeah, they all merged.
Wells Fargo, yeah.
And then they had a bank called Southern Bank. I remember that was formerly...
Now, Pike County Bank was locally owned.
Yeah,
it was
right.
different than...
Robert Dunn started that bank.
Yeah.
And, of course...
Well, are y'all excited? I mean, I'm not into baseball like I used to be, but Major League Baseball, I don't know if we've even talked about it, starts Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
You got the New York Yankees against the Washington Nationals. Of course, the Nationals won the World Series last year, and then you got San Francisco at Los Angeles. So Major League Baseball is back, finally starting on Thursday night.
Yeah. Want to say good morning to my good friends at Premier Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram trucks on the bypass in Troy. And of course, if it doesn't say, and of course, want to say good morning to Jason and all the great people. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, no deal will beat a Premier deal. Nobody will beat it, I promise you. A great article on Linda Faust, who takes reins as Brundage's new city clerk, Linda Walls. You've heard of Walls before. This was the twin. They were twins, these beautiful twin Walls girls, and they had a brother that was a pretty good football player. Y'all remember him?
No, I sure do. He was a quarterback for my father-in-law, Frankie Fryer, throwing him passes, Randy Walls.
Wait a minute. Frankie Fryer is your father-in-law?
Yeah.
Frankie Fryer.
Carrie Fryer. I married Carrie Fryer, whose family, Frankie, is from Brundage. Everybody knows Frankie Fryer.
Exactly right.
He now lives in Montgomery.
What a great little wide receiver Frankie Fryer was.
He was a great baseball player and softball player, and but I've heard a lot of Randy Walls stories through Frank.
Yeah.
Is your wife from Troy?
No, she went to Jeff Davis, and she went to Troy University, so that brought her to Troy.
That's right. Went to Jeff Davis. And, of course, those Walls twins were beautiful, or still are beautiful girls. And Linda Walls Faust has been appointed a city clerk at this Brundage City Council meeting recently, and she replaces a legend, buddy. I tell you, we're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss him, no question about it.
You know, it's gonna be interesting. Montgomery City Schools. I read an article. Robert Lee is going to change their name. Jeff Davis is going to change their names. Sidney Lanier is going to change their name. It's going to be very interesting to see what their names end up being. That's 3 schools that are going to change their name.
All history rich, too, man. When you talk about Sidney Lanier High School, it was the premier high school.
Oh, bar star.
And now I'm talking about academic reputation. I just remember my parents talking about, anybody that went to Sidney Lanier was, 2 grades ahead of everybody else. And then I lived in Montgomery for a long time. All the movers and shakers and rich, ultra successful, civic-minded people in Montgomery that I saw from time to time, they all went to Sidney Lanier High School in the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
One of the top 5 athletes there is the great Dickie Calhoun, according to.
There you go. He would be an example.
He really
of that.
was. He's a lawyer here in town, one of the best athletes ever come out of Montgomery, no question.
I was in the sporting goods business, and every single one of those schools need a wrecking ball. I mean, they're basically falling apart. Jeff Davis is, really old, and Robbie Lee's really old, but Sidney Lanier, I was really worried about the building crumbling walking in there.
Beautiful old building,
that is one of the oldest places I've ever walked into in my life. It scared me to death.
I remember the heydays of Lanier, Robert E. Lee going up against Lanier.
I've done some history on it. It was Lanier opened around 1918, I'm guessing.
Yeah, only school in town.
Then Robert E. Lee came around in probably the mid-50s, 54, 55, 56. Ed Jones was a friend of mine, and he was in the class at Lanier that went to the first class at Robert E. Lee, where Johnny Long was the band director.
You know who won?
And then Montgomery was growing so fast that 2 schools weren't enough. Then they opened Jeff Davis High School in, late 60s, mid 60s. But when I was in school, Jeff Davis was like the gold standards of high schools.
Like the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, baseball, football.
But before we get down too far, let me tell you one of the great.
They can change Sidney Lanier to Bart Starr High School, and then they can change Jeff Davis to Mike Turk High School.
Yeah, that would be good.
And they can change Robert E. Lee to Fred Beasley High School.
Mike Turk was the quarterback and a great baseball.
Or Robert E. Lee to Tim Bird High School.
I saw Mike Turk in high school play Charles Henderson in a baseball game, and he stole home. Probably won the game.
I will tell you this, one of the great stars of all time at Sidney Lanier, do you know who it was?
Bart Starr?
Charlie Bradshaw.
Really?
Charlie Bradshaw went to Lanier High School and was a star football player.
Well, he played at Kentucky.
Ended up playing under Coach Bryant at Kentucky.
Did Richmond Flowers go to Lanier?
No, he went to, he did, that's right. He went to Lanier. Great one. He was a great athlete.
Great athlete he had to be. He was in the Olympics, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. I can remember him as a high school senior running against one of the great hurdlers, Willie Davenport, and losing by about a yard.
You know, the people that came from...
He went to a race and he was running the hurdles and he fell and he still finished second.
I saw that. It was one of the greatest, most courageous things I've ever seen in sports. Was my senior year in high school. They were holding the state track meet at Auburn University. They had an old center track there, and Lanier had the great teams, and there were great teams out of Murphy and Mobile and several others. Well, Richmond Flowers had already won the 100-yard dash by beating a guy named Mike Gooch from Florence in a photo finish. And then in the low hurdles, Richmond Flowers breaks another state record. In the broad jump, Richmond Flowers broad jumps 23.8. And broke the record of one, Mike? Dickie Calhoun.
Wow.
Had that state championship and record for the broad jump until Richmond Flowers broke it. Okay, then now Flowers lines up in the high hurdles
300
Lanier, and it was part of the championship. And he starts off on his 110-yard high hurdles.
Oh.
That's that high hurdle. And then about halfway through the race, he falls flat on his face. He got tripped by the hurdle, and he goes completely to the ground. I mean, he falls hard to the ground. Everybody on the track goes ahead of him. Well, instead of laying there and feeling sorry for himself, he said, well, my team can win a state championship. He gets up and finishes second, and his team won the championship with the points that they won on that effort. But it was one of the great efforts, courageous efforts, where, you know, here it is, the greatest hurdle in Alabama history, falls flat on his face. Everybody passed him, and one of those guys would later on sign with the University of Alabama. His name was Patterson.
My guess is he got up lickety-split. It's super
That's
fast.
right, what he did. He got up lickety-split and finished second in a very close race to the guy that later on went to Alabama to run the hurdles. But that was one of the courageous plays I've ever seen in sports. You know, Mr. Jim Ramage was a farmer, and he was also turned banker, and of course he started the bank there in Brundage, and it's been one of the strong banks ever since, and run by some great people. They started the bank with $30,000 loan, and the first day of business they received $16,000 in deposits, and they were on their way. And what a great bank it's been. One of the strong local banks in Alabama is now merged with one of the strongest local banks, or strongest banks in the state of Alabama, Troy Bank and Trust Company.
That's right. It's a great
marriage. $1 billion bank right here in Troy, Alabama. And we appreciate
Are they the only bank you'll ever need?
It's the only bank you'll ever need. And right now, Mike, let's see if you can name it. This is how important this bank is to Troy and Pike County. Name the different locations of the bank, Mike. And if you can get it, I'm going to give you a free cup of coffee from McDonald's.
I don't know. With the merger, how many are in Troy? Maybe 4.
There were 2.
4 in Troy, maybe 2 in Brundage, 2 in Brundage, I guess, counting the original.
That's right. Well, actually, you've got one in Brundage.
Yeah, you got the original. I guess.
You got the downtown location, the
First
230,
National,
2 on 231.
Trust branch there.
All right, Mike, you've done this a million times.
Goshen, Elba, Enterprise, New Brockman, Auburn, Dothan.
Dothan soon to have 2 locations. Go ahead.
I'm trying to. There's nothing. There's no branch in Montgomery. I'm trying to think of another small town in that area where there might be a branch.
Ozark,
or no?
No, they don't have one in Ozark, but they have 3 local banks in Troy. 3 locations in Troy or 4.
Well, no, they have 4. Count the other one.
All right, you got
it. CGI.
Yeah. Okay, it is a Monday.
4 locations in Troy now.
I know. So we're talking about 14 locations or 13?
I'm not sure. Did I leave out of town?
I think it is. I think that's got it. So those are all the locations of Troy Bank and Trust Company, the only bank you'll ever need. Remember, Dodge, my good friends at Premier Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram Trucks today. Also, our good buddies at and a lot of folks will be heading that way today to Bird Drugs for a wonderful breakfast or a wonderful lunch from Bird Drugs in downtown Troy. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. Rice, straight up.
You still got a few minutes. You know, it's only 8:24.
On Mondays, Mike, we've got Sanders Truck Line.
Okay, yeah, we need to get up.
Sanders Trucking is coming up. Of course, one of the great truck lines in America is Wiley Sanders Truck Lines, located right here in Troy, Alabama. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for the Jeffrey Bennett Show right after this. All right, buddies.